An American woman has been killed by a shark near Rose Island in the Bahamas. According to local authorities, it all happened while Jordan Lindsay of California was swimming with her family. They had gone as a group to do a bit of snorkeling. The police said in a statement that they believe Jordan was not only attacked by a single aggressive shark, but actually bitten by at least 3 different sharks. The poor girl was only 21 years old. She was with her father, her 2 brothers, and her mother, and yet all the sharks ganged up on her, ripping Jordan to shreds so fast that nobody even had time to react. By the time anyone realized what was going on, it was too late. Jordan's mother was just feet away as the sharks were taking bites out of her daughter. She managed to get Jordan back to shore after the vicious and sudden attack, but it was too late. The sharks did some pretty good damage to Jordan. Her right arm was torn off completely, her left arm was gnawed on like a piece of corn, and both of her legs were shredded like she'd gone through a cheese grater. Emergency services showed up quickly, but by the time they managed to transport Jordan to the hospital, she was already dead. Jordan was a student at Loyola Marymount University and will be dearly missed by her family and friends.
While swimming with her daughter in mid-2020 off Maine's Bailey Island, New York resident Julie D'Imperio Hollowash died in a vicious shark attack. Good Samaritans and emergency personnel alike worked to get the 63-year-old woman to shore and fought to save her life, but she tragically succumbed to her injuries. Witnesses reported that Hollowash and her daughter were laughing and playing in the water in the moments leading up to the fateful encounter. Suddenly, they saw something breach out of the water, and then they heard the screaming. During the attack, which happened just 60 feet or 18 meters from shore, Hollowash was abruptly pulled underwater. According to NBC 10 Boston, she screamed and thrashed for mere seconds before her body went limp. Scientists identified the attacker as a great white based on a tooth fragment recovered in the ordeal's aftermath. The deadly incident was a highly unusual event, in the words of Patrick Kelleher, the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Resources. It's true that great whites are rarely spotted in Maine, which is at the northern end of their range, but it's also not unheard of for one to be seen in the area, with recorded sightings dating back to the 1800s. Researchers believe that the customary 2 or 3 great white sightings off Maine each year could turn into more in the future due to the warming of the region's waters.
A Georgia surf instructor had a close brush with death when a shark just about ripped his entire leg off. This happened in the waters off Tybee Island. The instructor's name is Atsushi Yamada, known locally as Hot Sushi. He works at the Hot Sushi's Happy Surf Camp, helping youngsters master the sport of surfing. Yamada, who was born in Japan, was sitting on his board in the water with a student when the shark began circling. He noticed the ferocious beast but couldn't react in time, and suddenly he felt what he described as being hit by a baseball bat. It was the shark's teeth trying to take a bite out of him. Yamada managed to keep the student with him safe, taking the full brunt of the attack. The shark left him with 3 huge gashes on his leg, then fled back into the deeper water. Yamada got to shore and corralled all of his students out of the water. The beach was closed for the day, and just later that same week, he was back out surfing. According to Yamada himself, he believes it was probably an Atlantic black-tip shark or bull shark that attacked him. He also said that he is grateful that the shark went after him and not one of his students. He never really got a good look at it. The creature swooped in, took a bite, and then swam away.
A 64-year-old Florida woman named Adrienne Wixo was attacked by a bull shark in early May while out on her longboard near New Smyrna Beach. Bull sharks are one of the most aggressive sharks in the entire ocean. The shark reportedly grabbed her by the foot and, in her words, wouldn't let go as he emerged above the water and thrashed violently, tossing Wixo like a fish in the process. He refused to let go until she kicked him with a free foot, at which point a friend guided her to shore, leaving a bloody trail in the water behind them. Wixo was rushed to the hospital, where she underwent 4-hour surgery to repair her shredded foot. She's expected to recover, at least physically, but disentangling from the psychological damage may prove more complicated. Wixo, who is a lifelong surfer, is unsure whether she'll ever swim in the ocean again. New Smyrna Beach is a world leader when it comes to the number of shark bites known to occur there. And while most injuries are minor, nobody is immune to the possibility of falling victim to a life-threatening or fatal attack. Bite numbers were uncharacteristically low last year, which experts don't see as a sign that things are improving. Instead, they attribute the lower than usual bite rate to last year's coronavirus pandemic restrictions and life in lockdown.
Eric Norrie has had some pretty bad luck with nature. He was recently recovering from a near-death experience he had in the Bahamas when a shark bit off a piece of his leg during a spearfishing trip. According to Eric, the shark grabbed his leg, he heard a ripping sound, and when he turned around, the water was filled with blood. He had to use part of his spearfishing equipment to make a crude tourniquet to stop himself from bleeding to death as he desperately swam back to the sandbar. He really thought he was going to die. But believe it or not, this is not Eric's first brush with death. He's had some other pretty nasty encounters with nature and her creatures. It started when he was only 10 years old. A tree he was standing under was struck by lightning, sending him backwards as if a bomb had exploded in front of him. Later on in life, he was attacked by a rattlesnake while taking a stroll around a country club and nearly lost his leg, kind of like what happened with the most recent shark attack. But perhaps the weirdest animal encounter came from a trip to the Amazon, in which Eric was attacked by a monkey. And then it happened again a second time when his wife locked him in a cage with a small monkey as a practical joke, only to have the monkey bite him and try to claw his eyes out. And now, after surviving this latest shark encounter, Eric feels like he and Mother Nature have reached something of a stalemate. Why do you think Eric has such terrible luck with animals?
In recent weeks, a surfer died in a suspected shark attack at Tuncurry Beach in New South Wales, Australia, located roughly 186 miles or 300 kilometres north of Sydney. The man, who was in his 50s, had noticed the shark just moments earlier and warned his friends of its presence. In a heartbreaking plot twist, it was he who would perish. His friends rushed over when they saw the attack happening, but their efforts to save the man, along with the help of EMTs, were in vain. After losing massive amounts of blood, he went into cardiac arrest and passed away. The shark had inflicted critical injuries on the victim's upper thigh. Witness Michael Guest told 9 News that emergency personnel did everything they possibly could to revive the man, but to no avail. People reported numerous shark sightings in the days leading up to the horrifying incident. The specimen responsible for killing the surfer is believed to be one of two that was seen the day before, one of which measured nearly 15 feet or 4.5 meters long. Civilians and professionals alike responded diligently to the attack, but at the end of the day, nothing could have spared the victim's life, reminding us just how unpredictable and wild these apex predators are. Have you ever seen a shark while swimming in the ocean? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already.
A man in Queensland, Australia, on a jet ski was recently attacked by a shark off the coast of North Stradbroke Island. And to be honest, it was kind of his fault. He had actually spotted about 5 of the huge animals with his drone even before he got in the water. Rick Manning then decided he wanted to get closer to the sharks using a jet ski. He thought it would be fun to circle the deadly animals. It turned out not to be the best idea because one of them attacked. According to what Manning told 7 News Australia, the shark lunged at him with such fury that he could see the animal's teeth as they just about clamped down on his foot. He knew at that moment he had made a serious error. The shark was about 3 meters long. It was a kind of bull shark. Its teeth so sharp and deadly that it actually managed to rip off a piece of the jet ski. It ripped right through the fiberglass. This is no surprise considering bull sharks are some of the most aggressive sharks in the water, named after bulls because of how huge and heavy they are. According to the International Shark Attack File, bull sharks are responsible for somewhere around 100 unprovoked human attacks, with about 25 fatalities. However, there are probably dozens, if not hundreds more attacks that have not been reported. As for Manning and his shark encounter, he was almost knocked off the jet ski but managed to cling onto it for dear life. He was then so frightened that he sped back to shore and refused to get back in the water, which is, you know, what you do when there are sharks right there.
Shark attacks are undoubtedly traumatic encounters. Those that are attacked are often left fearful of ever stepping foot into the ocean again. But a 14-year-old named Parker Blanchette recently offered a different perspective after receiving 100 stitches in the aftermath of a shark attack at North Beach on Kaneohe Marine Corps Base near Honolulu. The 8th grader, who surfed 6 times a week, was riding a wave when a shark bit him in the foot. He felt what he described as a little punch to his leg, and at the first sight of blood, Blanchette immediately paddled ashore. The bite did not last long, about a half a second according to the teen's estimate, and he surmised that the shark was roughly 5.5 feet or 1.7 meters long. Once safely on dry land, Blanchette called his mum, Amanda, and calmly informed her of the incident. His laid-back demeanour helped to keep her calm as emergency personnel treated the wound and transported him to the hospital. Blanchette stayed at the hospital for 2 days and received over 100 stitches. Amanda, originally from Illinois, was inspired by her young son's ability to keep cool in a situation that most people would find utterly terrifying. In reality, the shark bit very close to an artery, and Blanchette was extremely lucky it missed the mark because otherwise the bite may easily have proven fatal. Wise beyond his years, the adolescent acknowledged his awareness that when he goes surfing, he is in the shark's territory. He also said he was eager to heal and get back in the water. This was the first recorded shark attack at North Beach, but staff members weren't surprised by it. Speaking with Fox 59, beach lifeguard supervisor Clark Abbey said given the high volume of sharks that pass through the area and travel there to give birth, that it wasn't a question of if, but when an attack would happen again. Abbey explained that the attack on Blanchette was likely a case of a mistaken identity, that the shark took a bite, realised he wasn't a fish, and continued on with its day.
While on duty at Hilton Head Island, a lifeguard was attacked brutally and mercilessly by a crazy shark. The lifeguard has not been named for privacy reasons, but we do know that the Hilton Head Island Fire Rescue responded to a 911 call at about 11:45 in the morning and needed to transport the lifeguard to the nearest hospital so that he could be airlifted to Savannah for immediate treatment. The lifeguard suffered deep lacerations to his upper body but was relatively stable when transported to the hospital. Unsurprisingly, this was not the first shark attack on the East Coast this year. It actually happened about a week after the surfing instructor Atsushi Yamada was attacked in Georgia. And what makes this really strange is that in both cases, experts believe the shark responsible was a blacktip. But could it be the same shark? It's unlikely, but not impossible. The blacktip may have bitten the Japanese surf instructor in Georgia and then swam his merry little way down to South Carolina to bite the lifeguard. Do you think it was the same shark? Maybe this particular shark was just having a rough month. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already.
Recently, some fishermen saw a shark attack another angler off the Neuville Peninsula, northwest of the capital city of Noumea. Shark attacks off the French territory of New Caledonia in the South Pacific have occurred with alarming regularity so far this year. Emergency and rescue workers searched for the victims but had no luck. Not only did they fail to recover any bodies through an extensive sea and air search, no one was reported missing to police. Witnesses told local newspaper Les Nouvelles Calédoniennes that the attack happened quickly. All they saw, in the words of one observer, was the fins flapping above the water and then nothing more. The local government responded by banning swimming and other water activities in the immediate area for several days while they worked to identify the shark responsible for the attack. Several specimens were captured for autopsy, including a 14-foot or 4.3-metre long tiger shark. At least 2 other people have died in shark attacks off New Caledonia so far this year, and at least one person's disappearance remains unexplained, pointing towards an ongoing problem in the region between man and beast. In fact, these numbers are rising globally. Last year, there were 13 recorded fatal shark attacks, spiking from the worldwide annual average of 4. And the speed and swiftness with which the victim in this most recent attack disappeared speaks to how quickly one of these marine predators can end a human life. Makes you think twice about swimming in the ocean.
A day at the beach turned into a deadly affair when a man waded into the water to pee. This is a prime example of why you should never pee in the ocean. Just minutes after the drunk man waddled into the water to relieve himself, bystander Adriano Gomez witnessed a surge of blood in the water like something out of the movie Jaws. The victim in this scenario was Marcelo Rocha Santos, a 51-year-old man who had been drinking with friends. It was the middle of the afternoon and everyone was having an awesome time. Rather than seeking out a toilet, Marcelo simply walked into the water to do his business in the glory of nature. But what he didn't realize was that when he began to relieve himself, he was doing so on top of a shark. He literally peed directly onto the apex predator. Not the smartest move. As you can imagine, the shark was not super happy about this. In retaliation for being peed on, the shark bit off Marcelo's hand with one great chomp and then ripped off a massive piece of his leg. His friend was even standing beside him when it happened and couldn't believe his eyes. His buddies managed to drag him back to safety, After all, they were only in water up to their waists. But it was too late. Marcelo lay lifeless and bloody in the sand. He bled out from his wounds and could not be revived.
A Decatur, Illinois man is grateful for his life after recently being attacked by 2 sharks while on vacation in Belize. Chad Barker and his wife decided to indulge in some thrill-seeking by snorkeling with some nurse sharks, but things didn't go exactly as planned. Less than 30 seconds after entering the water, the current swept Chad into the middle of a shark feeding frenzy, and 2 8-foot or 2.4 metre long specimens sank their teeth into his hand. From the time he entered the water to the time he emerged with deep wounds, less than a minute passed. It happened so fast, Barker told news station WAND 17. With no emergency room nearby, he was taken to a local OB/GYN for stitches, where he paid $200 for a reportedly less than good job. Barker decided to finish out the trip despite his injuries. He and his wife actually planned to retire in Belize, suggesting that while the ordeal may have been startling, it fell short of actually traumatising the pair. Although Barker admittedly believes that his luck is inherently bad and that a black cloud follows him around. Only 6% of shark attacks worldwide involve snorkelers, making what happened to Barker a rare occurrence. There are even websites and blogs dedicated to telling people that they shouldn't worry about being bitten while vacationing in Belize. But as this shocking encounter proves, one can never be too careful.
A young girl in Maryland has been horribly wounded in a suspected shark attack while swimming in water only up to her knees. This girl was just 12 years old and left the encounter with at least 20 teeth wounds that required dozens of stitches. She was vacationing with her family in Ocean City when she felt something brush against her shins. Then, all of a sudden, she was bleeding everywhere. The poor girl was only in 6th grade at the time and had to awkwardly stomp out of the water, leaving a trail of blood behind. Luckily, it must have been a very small shark that attacked her. The girl's father scooped her up in his arms and rushed her to safety. An EMT nurse who happened to be nearby helped stop the bleeding, and she was rushed to the hospital where she got 42 stitches. The photos uploaded online of the bite are pretty gnarly. Whatever chomped the girl had a huge mouth and left its imprint forever scarred just below her knee. She was actually quite lucky that it didn't come back for another bite, or she might have lost half her leg.
In January of this year, a 19-year-old woman was the first person to die in a fatal shark attack in New Zealand in 8 years. Kayla Marlowe was in the water at Waihi Beach when people suddenly heard screaming. A great white shark dragged her into deeper waters. Lifeguards rushed to get Marlowe out of the water, and emergency workers attempted to perform CPR on her for 20 minutes, but their attempts failed. Marlowe suffered fatal injuries to her leg and was pronounced dead at the scene. Meanwhile, swimmers were ordered to get out of the water. At a vigil memorialising Marlowe, local resident Mark Wilson told the press that it was common to see sharks in the area and that he believes it was only a matter of time before a tragedy like this would happen. Other locals agreed that sharks are often seen in the region, but said the creatures are usually harmless. And the statistics show that they are right. The attack on Marlowe was the first deadly shark encounter in New Zealand in 8 years. Number 3. A close encounter. While spending time on Hawaii's Kalama Beach with her mum in early May, a 6-year-old girl named Anila Resendez had a close encounter with a black-tip shark that could have easily proven fatal. Anila's mother, Shari Guvia, was filming the little girl frolicking in the shallow water when someone yelled, "Shark!" In the video, Anila turns around and sees what appears to be the end of the shark's tail thrashing around before turning and running towards shore. The quick-thinking child likely did herself a favour in doing so and thankfully suffered no injuries. But she only narrowly avoided the shark, and things very easily could have gone wrong. Shark experts told KHON-TV that the specimen that bit Anila was likely in the process of chasing a fish and that the little girl probably wasn't the animal's target. Unprovoked shark attacks are rare, but they do happen. Stories like this remind us that you don't have to be a shark's target to risk being hurt or killed by one.
About 3,000 years ago, off the southeastern coast of Japan, a man was killed by a shark. After the brutal attack, the victim was brought back to shore missing their right leg and left hand. They were then buried in the sand, where they rested peacefully until just recently, when archaeologists got a hold of the victim's bones. A new analysis of the man's partial skeleton, excavated over 100 years ago from a village cemetery near the Seto Inland Sea, has revealed that the man comes from the ancient Jomon culture of Japan. He is also the oldest known human victim of a deadly shark attack in history. According to archaeologist J. Alyssa White from the University of Oxford, radiocarbon dating put his death at anywhere from 3,391 to 3,031 years ago. The team identified at least 790 gouges and punctures left behind by the shark. They believe that the victim probably lost his left hand trying to beat the shark away, then was killed by a series of devastating bites that ripped open his major leg arteries and caused him to rapidly bleed to death. When he was recovered from the ocean, his mutilated left leg was probably barely hanging on by a thread, and whoever buried him put it on his chest before shoveling dirt onto his grave.
Late last year, a woman on vacation in the French Caribbean territory of St. Martin was attacked by a shark 500 feet or 150 metres from shore. The woman was swimming in Orient Bay on the northeastern part of the island when the shark swam up and tore her leg off. Unfortunately, she bled out and died on the spot. Shark attacks don't happen very often in St. Martin, according to Florida Program for Shark Research Manager Tyler Bowling, who told CBS News that the only other known unprovoked bite, which was non-fatal, happened in 2005. He also said that out of 34 unprovoked shark bites in the Caribbean since 2000, only 4 were fatal. It's highly unlikely that the woman was killed by a nurse shark, which is the most commonly seen species in the area and considered a non-threat. She was probably attacked by a bull shark or a tiger shark, which occasionally pass through these waters, although they are usually not a threat to humans either, according to shark researcher Mike Heithaus. Gavin Naylor, Program Director of the International Shark Attack File, told Associated Press that most shark attacks in the Caribbean occur around the Bahamas due to its high levels of tourism, pointing out the correlation between the number of people in the water and the number of attacks that tend to happen. But deadly encounters are still, in Naylor's words, pretty unusual in that part of the world.
While filming a stunt for Shark Week, one of the stars of the hit film series Jackass was nearly eaten. The filming was done for an episode called Jackass Shark Week, featuring members of the original Jackass crew like Steve-O and Chris Pontius. They were doing stunts for science, but it didn't really work out. Pontius tried to get a bull shark to charge at him as if it was a real bull. They dangled bait, trying to get bit on purpose, and Steve-O got good and sweaty on an exercise bike before leaping into the water to see if bull sharks were able to smell human sweat. But the last stunt proved to be the deadliest. When another member of the crew, McInerney, tried to jump over the sharks on a wakeboard, he missed the landing, splashed into the water, and was immediately swarmed by hungry Caribbean reef sharks. One of the sharks took a bite out of his hand. The crew and the medics jumped into action to save him, and they managed to get him out of the water just in time before another shark took yet another bite out. The bite was so brutal that the shooting had to be stopped, and McInerney was taken away in a speedboat for medical attention.
A little over a year ago, in May 2020, 26-year-old California native Ben Kelly was fatally attacked by a shark while surfing at Manresa State Beach in Santa Cruz County, roughly 300 feet or 91 meters from shore. The shark bit the man's knee, puncturing an artery and a vein. Emergency personnel rushed to the scene where Kelly was pronounced dead. While the species that killed Kelly remains undetermined, researchers noticed that the number of great whites in the area was increasing, leading them to believe that a great white migration was underway when the tragedy occurred. Their unexpected presence falls in line with sightings of sharks in unusual areas in recent years. Patch reported that in the summer of 2015, scientists noticed that great whites who normally migrate to Mexico were hanging around in SoCal, suggesting that warming waters are affecting where they choose to go. These new seasonal destinations, particularly those that are northerly, are concerning to researchers who wrote that they are primarily worried about the potential conflict with commercial fisheries, conservation of protected species, and public safety.
A horrifying recent death in Australia just goes to show that sharks really don't care how old you are. To them, you're really just a floating bag of meat. At Walleye Beach on a Saturday afternoon, Manny Hart DeVille, a 15-year-old surfer, was mauled to death by an unidentified shark. He was catching some waves, getting some good stunts in, when the shark sabotaged him on his surfboard, ripping a chunk out of his upper left thigh. Shortly after his friends dragged him to shore, Manny bled out from his injuries and was pronounced dead. First aid did nothing to help, and there was no stopping the blood gushing out of his leg. CPR efforts failed to revive him, and the young man stopped breathing and went cold still on the beach. Manny lived in the small coastal village where he surfed, and that community has been devastated by the attack. A statement from the Clarence Valley Council said that the community would be hurting for the young boy's tragic death, and while the attack was described as shocking, there's not really anything shocking about getting eaten by a shark in Australia. As you can tell from today's video, it happens so frequently that if you even dare step foot in the water, you're fair game. I mean, you are stepping into the shark's house. Even just wading up to your knees can result in a shark biting off your legs. Thanks for watching. How do you feel about swimming with sharks? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and come back again for another awesome video. See you next time. Bye!